Good evening there. Josh here. Hope you're doing well. This is my first video in a little while, over a week or so, mainly as I haven't been in Liverpool and sat at this desk. If I yawn, apologies. I think I'm still getting over the stag weekend, which was down in Southampton. Never been to Southampton before. That was quite nice. And yeah, 2 nights out on the trot, getting in at 4, 5 a.m. having possibly drunk some alcohol tends to take it out of you as you hurtle through your late 20s, it would appear. So yeah, if I appear a bit bedraggled at times, apologies. This is, well, what I was going to say, this is going to be a short video, but I say that every time. And we know what usually happens. This isn't a looking forward video. I just wanted to look back at Monday's racing, particularly Romanor, who won under a superb ride from Jamie Spencer at Windsor. And I kind of am starting to get my head around, or just start practicing, I suppose, talking about that doing something different theory. I'm going to write a blog post and probably record a few kind of different videos, kind of for general consumption on the free post and to the email lists, looking at and talking about the doing something different, or my doing something different theory, as I call it. And I'm sure I know most of you from reading how I write about races and horses have kind of got that in your mind already. But I thought I would highlight Romanor, who, on reflection, should have been a tip of the day, not the tip of the day. I'm saying that in hindsight, and of course, when a horse wins, it's easy to say that. I would have always put up Radisson, I think. So I have no complaints there, or no complaints with the approach, because it's similar or exactly the same to Romanor winning. It's just whether I should have maybe put them both up, and in particularly the Spencer horse, because he wasn't a qualifier on any particular strategy. And if you're rushed for time or didn't have time to look through the horses, you may have probably not backed him. And ideally, I do like to put my eyes focused on those that don't necessarily hit a particular strategy. And because I'm most of the time unlikely to back them myself. So yeah, you could make a case for him, and I'm going to kind of focus just on Romanor as a horse, just to kind of get that thinking into our heads to look at these horses, because I'm a great believer that if you can focus on these doing something different horses, using these starting points as a way in, we'll all do well over time. And I want to say this is kind of applicable to your own punting, not just the content that you find within this blog. So if we go to the start, kind of roll back and look at what I'm talking about, having starting points is the first thing I want to say. That can be the content. Well, for us, it's the content within the members post, but it could be anything else. And I think it's very important to have starting points as a way in to look at horses. It's very hard to just open a race card or a racing post or whatever and just flick through and try to find horses. There'll be different things that you look for, different starting points, and I can expand on them when I record videos, so kind of at a later point. But it could be trainer form, it could be your favorite type of race type. So for me, as the jump season progresses, that will be looking at 3 mile plus handicap chases in general. That is the only kind of race type I suppose I enjoy and I'm okay at looking at cold. So no stats, no trends, just looking at the race type. But me liking that race type and focusing on a few different things, kind of jumping, quality, ability to front run and run on the pace. I suppose they're the general ways in. I've got a race as a way in, and then I can kind of use what I'm talking about here within that to look at the horses. So I'll touch on that at a later point in terms of the starting points. But for us, if you're watching this as a member, I will probably post this on the free post. If you're not a member or whatever, our starting points, and that's why I like my own approach, is the stats qualifiers and my stats qualifiers against these two main stats reports here. that is the foundation of knowing that the horse qualifies against a decent set of trainer specific stats. The stats are nothing to do with the horse. The trainer stats make the horse irrelevant to a point, and I'll get on into a moment about how we make the horse relevant. But they make the horse irrelevant to a point, which is good because it means you do not have to be a form expert, you don't have to be a ratings expert, you don't have to be some scientific expert based on kind of times and time form or breeding and all that different kind of stuff. Our foundation, our starting point is the trainer. I trust their patterns of behavior. We're all creatures of habit and we tend to repeat those habits over time, which is why I personally like trainer stats as the starting point and as the way in. We can have confidence in those stats and that research over time that enough will repeat for us to do well. But they are not sophisticated enough just to follow every qualifier here in section 1, as I've said before, and that is the reason, or part of the reason, behind having the ratings pointers and the symbols to help build on that. But the other thing we can do is use the unexposed doing something different theory, and that's what I want to look at. So there's two approaches you can take. We've got your starting points. We've got the trainer qualifiers, the stats qualifiers. You may have other starting points, race types, pedigree, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, I'll discuss that at a different point. Now, you can look at exposed horses. And if we think back, I can remember when Guishan, well, she won for us at Nottingham and absolutely hacked up. But then she won, drifted, what was she, 12, 16 to 1, drifted to 25 to 1. She was a top rated and top 3 qualifier, so qualified on one of the strategies. But she won at 25 to 1 and drifted. And I can remember this. So she was exposed. She'd been there and done it before. And she actually ticked the race conditions. She hacked up at Nottingham. She then ran at another race at Ripon, I think, a kind of class above. I think it was a class 2, and then she dropped back into Chester at class 3. I had a small bet on because of the qualified against the strategy, and had a quick look and kind of didn't discount, but I was disappointed when she won that I only had what I did have on. And looking back, you could have made a kind of case she was doing something different in the sense that she was exposed, she was in form, which I think might be more important with some of the exposed ones, but was dropping back in class, so that was doing something different. But I don't want to talk about the exposed runners because that can complicate things. I want to talk about the unexposed horses and those that are doing something different, and reasons for why they may improve. So we don't want to look at exposed. So there's 2 foundation points. I hope you're still with me. The trainer stats and the weigh in. So we've got a horse to look at. You've got a list of horses here to focus your attention and to focus the time that you do have to kind of do some form analysis or profile analysis, race analysis, etc. And then the foundation, after that kind of early foundation, the next kind of layer, if I click on Romanor here, ignore that 1 because that's the win. The foundation here is the fact the horse is unexposed and lightly raced. Before this race, he was 0 from 8 1 places. We have a belief that at some point he is going to get better or hopefully show more on the racetrack. They may just be 1 from 7 like the actual tip, or 1 from 8, whatever. But they're lightly raced and there's a belief there's more to come. Now, there is no exact science on when a horse, I don't think, crosses that threshold of there not being any more to come or the horse not being exposed. You've got pedigrees and all sorts of different things, and horses developing at a later stage within their career or as they get older, as they strengthen up. This horse is 3, so you could say there should be more to come at some point. On the flip side of that, if you took a Mark Johnston 3-year-old, for example, you could be looking at this now and had 24 or 25 runs. And knowing when a horse has not yet reached his potential or not yet shown more, and when it just may not show more or may not actually be open to improvement, and may therefore just need its handicap mark to come down or be put into a level that is reasonable. When they're kind of over that point or when that point is reached is quite hard to tell. So you kind of have to go on feel, I think. But you can look at this horse, 3-year-old, was 0 from 8-1 place, and there's a belief that there should be more to come. So why should we focus on this? Well, we've got the odds as a way in. Now there could be more to come. The horse could be useless, but he was 7-1 this morning, and you've got more room for manoeuvre at that end of the market, and that's a reason why I like focusing generally on horses 6-1 or bigger, and trying to get better at those that are kind of 4-1, 9-2 or bigger, because you are wrong most of the time. That's a realization that you kind of get. Took me a little while, a couple of years probably, but you are going to be wrong most of the time, even if you like backing favourites, and I'm not sure why you would. You're only winning 30 to 35% of the time, and clearly you have to be right a lot more at that end of the market. But yeah, at 7-1, 6-1, 7-1 plus, you've got more room for manoeuvre. You can be wrong, you can get decisions wrong, but by looking at the starting point, you've got trainer stats that you can be confident in. You may look at one of the symbols, one of the ratings pointers. So there actually is a kind of more mathematical or ratings kind of way for why they may actually, or times-based way, I should say, for why they might run well. So you've got that to back yourself up. And then you've got that foundation that the horse is unexposed, and that hope, and the hope's important, the belief that one day there may be something more to come. So you can place your bet on a horse that's unexposed, excuse me. I'll just have a drink of water. You can place that bet with a kind of excitement that they might be about to run better. And then that's the next stage. So we've got those two foundations, the starting point, the stats, the horse qualifying against the trainer stats, and then the horse being lightly raced. And now we want to build up that belief for why should they improve on a recent run or improve on recent form. Now they may have shown winning form a few starts back or the back end of last season or something, and you're hoping for them, you want to see a reason for why they might repeat that or build on that. With Romanor here, we have a horse that is a maiden, 8-race maiden, only placed once, and I think partly because of the form of the actual what horse became tip of the day, the O'Meara horse, the fact he'd already shown something, and I think he was an elite squad qualifier, and this one wasn't a strategy. Maybe my thinking was the wrong way around, or it clearly was, because one won and one didn't. But the point here is this horse was doing plenty of things differently on those two foundation points that I've just discussed, on the belief that at some point this horse is going to show more. And I just want to talk about the things it did differently so that it gets, in a way, it reminds me, keeps my head ticking over, which you need to do, and you always need to try and get better at this game. And hopefully, obviously, to give you some ideas. And most of you might think about these things already or know them already. You could even have a checklist. But all we're looking at is asking yourself that question in your head. Is the horse doing something different? What is the horse doing something? What is the horse doing different? And what could it do different? And while it's on in my head, I will just touch on that. What could it do different? And there I'm talking about pace, and whether or not the run style may change. Now that's quite difficult. It can be impossible to predict. Now headgear changes, as I've touched on and discussed before, can be an indication that tactically a horse is about to change. I remember Akimoto, and some of you will remember him, at Chepstow, if my memory is correct, handicap chaser for Graham McPherson, had suddenly a bit of a moody bugger. I think we'd backed him on the stats qualifier a few days before at Uttoxeter, and some of you kept an eye on him. I know some of you backed him at 50-1. Suddenly had blinkers on for the first time, doing something different, had been held up, and blinkers and other headgear can spark a horse up and make them focus. And they said, sod that, let's change tactics, and they blasted the horse to the front. Maidall, Love Life, it was a handicap chase. If you can get in the rhythm onto the front end over fences and you keep going, it's pretty hard to catch. Obviously, if you've got the stamina and hit race conditions, etc. And that's what he did. So headgear change can initiate a change of tactics. Now I got this wrong with it. I thought Romanor, because Spencer was in my mind having made all a time before, I thought there wasn't any out and out front runners in this. He might decide to make all. When he didn't, I thought about it after the race, and the horse is clearly keen, and can pull a bit, which is why after the race I thought about, well, that's clearly why I didn't hold him up. But that's an aside. That I thought that because he had the hood on, and actually having then watched him race, and you could see Jamie trying to settle him. But that's a thinking about why the horse might run differently or do something, and that can be a trigger for why a horse suddenly bounces back into form from nowhere. It's pretty hard to decipher, it's pretty hard to kind of guess that, but that can be in your thinking, especially if there's no natural pace on in the race. Maybe you might be a jockey that you know front runs, they might suddenly be drawn better or close to a rail, and they might have made all before and they might have been held up on plenty of recent runs. So that's thinking you can kind of develop over time. But the more obvious thing is to look at the things that you can see. So we've got the horse. Before I touch on him, we've got the trainer. So we know the trainer is in form. So I suppose a bit like pace, that is another reason for why the horse might suddenly run better. Because this one ran 32 days ago. You can see from the GG's very handy drop down inform stats here for the trainer. That's clicking that little tab there. The last 30 days, which includes the 14 days, he was 5 from 40. Decent enough, especially on the profit, was just in profits, probably had some decent price winners. But that means he was only, in those 16 days before these last 14, he was only 1 from 20. The places were pretty similar, 1 from 27 places, but suddenly they started winning. And in the last 14 days, he was 4 from 20, 8 had placed, including those 4 winners, performing above market expectations, performing way above chance, and quite profitable. So we knew the trainer was in form. And that was a reason why the horse may run better and could be an excuse from recent form. We've had that with David O'Meara recently. He did go through a bit of a quiet patch. They kind of ran well, they kind of didn't. Well, some ran well and plenty didn't. And that was a possible reason for why horses were running well, because it hit a dip in form. Now, that's two ways you can therefore look at trainer form. You can say, well, is there a form reason for why he didn't run well? Not necessarily with him, because Walker's horses were going okay, but there's suddenly a reason for why he may run better. So there's two different ways you can kind of look at that. He didn't necessarily run badly on recent runs. There is suddenly now a reason for why he may run better, because the trainer and the yard is in form. And that is another reason that we can look at. And actually, then you can, if you've got access to such tools as this, or whatever tools you use to look at trainer form, there's only 2 trainers in form here, and these actually finished first and second, I think. And that is another way in, or another kind of building block, another part of the puzzle, or trying to piece together that puzzle, is that the trainer is in form against a load of trainers who aren't in form. That doesn't mean they're out of form, but these 2 yards, the horses are running well in particular. So that's again something else you can start to piece up the puzzle. And as I go through this video more, I'm looking at and questioning myself of why the hell I didn't tip him and put him up. Because actually, if I'd have made a list, which I didn't do, of all the things that he was doing differently against the O'Meara horse, it would be kind of the reason why I should pick on him. So we've got, let's just focus on, and while I look at the time, and it's not going to be a short video, as it's 18 minutes, but hopefully you found this of some use. I want to look at what the horse is doing differently, and I want to build up a reason and some confidence for why he may suddenly bounce back into the winner's enclosure. Remember, we've got that trainer form foundation. We've got the starting point foundation of the trainer stats, knowing that Ed Walker does well here with all of his handicap runners. You've got the horse foundation that is unexposed and lightly raced, and therefore a belief and a hope that at some point in the future there is going to be more. Now, I want there to be more today, because he hits my starting point. The trainer's in form. There's that other Inform Racing top 3 speed rating symbol. I want him to run well and to win today. He's 7 to 1. I can afford to be wrong more times than I'm right, but when I'm right enough over time, I will be profitable. So I need to have a reason why this horse should suddenly run better than he's done before. And the good thing, I suppose, now is that the GG's, this Inform, his form is updated, because that is today's run. As I record this on the 4th of September, that is his run and his win at Windsor, and we can suddenly see the things he's doing differently. So this horse ran in a maiden, ran in 3, 25 to 1, 12 to 1, 8 to 1, kind of an indication that he wasn't expected necessarily to win his maiden, because sometimes in maidens you expect market support. He was 12 to 1 here. He didn't. He did then get a handicap mark, but they still kept him to maidens where he ran okay. So he was second. That was at Epsom. Then he ran at Windsor, 10 furlongs. Again, not really doing much. He was fancied. We can see here that he's got the hood on, and that should give you an indication. Hoods are normally given for horses that can be keen and they can pull, and the trainer wants to settle them, wants to switch them off, wants to relax them. They might be the type that get agitated, and that's why the hood can be used. There might be many other different reasons, but generally to calm the horse down, so you can start to build up a picture of the type of horse we've got, or his kind of his profile and his run style, and the fact that he does need settling and is a bit keen. So we've got his run here then. So he's running in auction maiden races and maidens, running okay. I mean, a maiden, there might have been many others here that wanted to run. You can look at here, and actually that was a decent auction maiden race. It was at Windsor, so we know that he's got form and experience, I suppose, of the course. So that is another tick in that box, I suppose. So then you've got, yeah, that was an okay maiden. He's now got his handicap mark. He's gone up to 80. We'll see here, that's another thing you can look there. His mark has dropped. He's dropped £4 from his high. Now he hasn't been running atrociously. He's been running okay, but we want the kind of reason for why he might suddenly run better. And there's a few. So let's firstly look at the reason why he may not have ran to form on his last race. And really that is about headgear tongue tie switch. So we've got in our head that he's a keen horse, and suddenly the hood is removed. Now you can go back and watch racing and blah blah blah. I didn't watch the run of this race. I'm assuming, and I wouldn't be shocked with the hood removed, that he was too keen, especially as he seemed to weaken a couple furlongs from home. And Andy had the tongue tie on, and Matt, actually, some of you may have read his post. He did one on headgear and tongue ties and things, and I've touched on it in a Betting Insiders article before. Horses can take a while to get used to the tongue tie. If the trainer thinks the horse has been struggling to breathe or swallowing their tongue or whatever, psychologically it can affect the horse, and it can take them time to get used to having their tongue tied down, and take them time to get used to actually breathing normally and seeing through the end of their race. If they swallow their tongue or have breathing issues, when there are some maximum effort in the latter stages of the part of the race, they're scared. They don't want to. They don't want to go through the effort because they know it hurts and they know they can't breathe. And it takes some time to acclimatise to that tongue tie. So you might see in future horses improve on their second, third, fourth run in the tongue tie as they get used to it, as they get used to breathing. As it happens, it could have been a negative for this one. He's already pulling, he's already a bit agitated, he's already a bit keen. Suddenly he's got the tongue tie on, he might not like it, whatever. But the lack of hood could be the excuse for that, added to the fact he might not have liked the tongue tie. Fine, okay. Ignore that. That was over 9 furlongs at Epsom. Now what is he doing different today? Well, the tongue tie is off and the hood is back on. So that's a couple of things there of interest. He moves up in trip. So we've got the headgear change. Now that doesn't have to be a new headgear change, but it can be a change from the last run. So you can look at the last run and kind of look at why that might have been a poor performance and why we may see better today. Well, the hood's back on and the tongue tie's off. So you've got that in your mind. Is there anything to the race conditions? Well, there's a distance move. So he goes from 9 furlongs back up 2 furlongs. We don't have to take a view that that might be a positive or a negative. You don't need to get yourself in knots necessarily that, oh, he might not have stayed 12 furlongs here, or he might not have stayed 10, blah, 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 blah. Remember, we've got that view that the horse is lightly raced and unexposed, and there could be more to come. And you want just a reason. Remember, we've got odds. We've got odds. We've got a good price horse where we can be wrong many more times than we need to be right. You've got a reason for why he may improve, because he's moved up in distance. He may not, may be rubbish, may not stay, but don't necessarily have to tie yourself up in knots with that, because you've got the foundation of the trainer stats as a way in. You've got the foundation. We've already seen the trainer is in form. You've got the fact the horse is unexposed. So all we're doing is looking for things that the horse is doing differently. And we've got a distance move. We've got a class move, which is actually, and I thought about it when I was looking at the horse. I didn't mention it in the notes, so apologies for that. If you did have a flick through and thought, maybe not, I should have mentioned that. That can be a big factor. You've seen that his handicap mark has dropped by £4 since its high, and now he's running in a Class 5, so that is a big alarm. This horse is doing something different. He'd been running in Class 4 races. This is quite a drop. You know, that Class 4 race was worth 5,000. This is a Class 5 worth 2,000 to the winner. He is dropping in class. He's dropping against the caliber of opposition. So he's doing two things combined there. What, three or four things? Tongue tie off, hood back on, moved up in distance, down in class. That is all you kind of need. Is a good price. He's on the foundation that he qualifies against some decent trainer stats. I would say them. I researched them myself. But that's your way in. You've got your way in, whatever your way in is. We're talking about the members post. We're talking about the qualifiers against my stats pack. You might take confidence from the fact the trainer is in form. You've got the 14 here. And one of our 3 ratings pointers, he hits one of them with the inform speed ratings top 3. The final thing that we can look at is the jockey change. And Jamie Spencer is booked. Now, I could go on a rant about Jamie Spencer. There's a lot of people that think he's a shit jockey, for want of a better phrase. Excuse my language. He isn't. He's one of the best horsemen and best jockeys there are in flat racing. And that's the end of. I am the unofficial chairman of the Jamie Spencer fan club. That argument is for another day. But one of the things that he's brilliant at and he's superbly skilled at is settling a horse. And I don't want to go off on a tangent, but you may find that it makes this video more entertaining. He once did an interview on Channel 4 Racing where he discussed mainly his style. And he will take a view of the horse. He'll take a view primarily as a horseman first. And his aim is to get the horse to finish off their race at the business end. Now, how does he do that? Well, his main way is to settle the horse. For him, that generally means, he likes to get the horse racing in a rhythm and a pace that he thinks they are comfortable going. And he'll do that through his hands and judging the horse. Now, sometimes that might be near the back of the field, sometimes near the middle. Now, we already know with this horse that he wears a hood. He doesn't wear a hood just to look good. He will wear it for a reason, I should think, because he's keen, because he pulls a bit and they want to settle him down, block off his ears, make him focus, and just to get him in a rhythm. And in this race, you can go back and watch it. Jamie Spencer settled him out the back. Now, I was concerned when watching it live because I knew there wasn't a load of pace in the race and they didn't seem to be going overly quick. Now, Spencer may have got that wrong. He may have got that wrong. And as I thought after the race, the alternative was he could have made it and tried to go forward. That means booting the horse out of the stalls and ramming him to the front. Now, with a horse that's keen, you don't want to do that necessarily. That could have sparked him up. And this is a horse that Spencer wants to go through the gears. He wants to start in a rhythm and he wants to build up the pace so that he is going his maximum and his optimum speed and the fastest he can go near the business end, not near the front, because Jamie may have, and I'm not a jockey, I'm not a horseman, he may have judged that to try to make all on this horse in this race would have been a disaster because if they used up too much energy on the front end, he then wouldn't have been able to drop anchor. The horse would have been fighting him and pulling him, and that is why he was held up. Now, if I back a Jamie Spencer mount, I know that he can get it wrong sometimes. He won this by a head. There wasn't a load of pace. He could have lost by a head. And a load of people would have been screaming. The horse was well backed into 7-2. He halved in price. People would have been going, oh, that was a rubbish Jamie Spencer ride. Oh, he timed it too badly. Oh, he was held up at the back. Bollocks. Because if he'd have tried to run and race at the front on the pace with a horse that is keen, and if he'd listened to my idea that he might try and make all, he clearly judged that wouldn't have been wise. And you can see why. If he'd have tried to do that on a horse which is keen, he may have blown the chance. And he may have been mid-pack or at the back. And Jamie likes to teach horses how to race. He likes to educate them and settle them and get them in a rhythm and for them as a horse to finish off their race. He doesn't care about your bet. He doesn't care about my bet. He cares about the horse and them running to the best of their ability. Well, he won here and he ran to the best of his ability. Now, the thing about the jockey change, as I get back and move away from that mini rant, is it's a jockey change. You don't get yourself twisted in that trip change. Is it positive? Is it negative? It's a jockey change. It's doing something different. It's a different rider. You might have a different style. You might make the horse think about things differently. You could, of course, then look to see if the trainer has a decent record with the jockey, which I'll do just here. What have we got in handicaps? Uh, so that's decent. Now that isn't in a. I'm looking at that as a reason necessary to be put off the horse. So if a trainer's kind of 0 from 52 places or whatever with a certain jockey, you're not necessarily looking at these stats because we've already got so many reasons why we should back the horse. You're not necessarily looking at these stats to find another positive or another reason for lumping on. You could then be looking at them as a reason to be put off. Or is there a reason why now I shouldn't want to back this horse? Or is there a reason, even I would say if these stats were negative, because of all the things I've discussed about the horse and the doing things different and the trainer stats, blah, 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 I wouldn't necessarily be put off if these figures were poor. It might make me change how much I bet on them and the staking level. But, you know, a near 20% win strike rate in handicaps and a 50% win and place, decent. So that's the reason. So that's Romanor. This is going to be long, isn't it? We're on 31 minutes. They're the reasons. So let's just recap. Why should we back him? Well, we've got our starting point. Let's start with the things you can see here. We've got our starting foundation that he qualifies against some trainer stats or whatever weigh-in you have, your favourite race type, whatever. We've already got in our mind here that the trainer is in form. So the horse... there might be a reason there for why the horse may suddenly run better than he has done previously because the yard's just bouncing, and or there might be a reason that the yard was in poor form before hitting this form, and therefore that's a reason also to excuse poor runs. We've got a ratings pointer, an I3, so there's something on the figures, there's something on the clock, or there's something on, say, horse race base ratings for why this horse has some abilities in the top 3 of the ratings on that particular rating set. Then we have the price. These are things you can see before you start looking at the horse in a bit more depth. You've got the price that allows you to be wrong more times than you're right, because the times you're right will make up for the times you're wrong and will ensure, obviously you need to be right and back a few winners, but will ensure that you come out ahead over time, and that is important. If you just want to back winners, fine. Winners generally means near the top of the market. Backing more winners generally means backing favourites. And if you just back favourites, every £1,000 you bet, you'll lose about £100 over time, but that's a discussion for another day. You will not win in the long term by focusing right at the top end of the market. Don't I sound like a broken record? So you've got that foundation. You can tell those little things that annoy me. And having learned the hard lessons myself. So we've got that foundation, all those things I've just discussed. Now we need to look at the horse, and I want you to look at the horse through the eyes of, is the horse unexposed? Is there hope? Is it lightly raced? Is there reasons why at some point, someday in the future, this horse should run better? And now we can look at the horse. We already know the trainer's going well. This horse ticked so many boxes. He ticked all the boxes for how I look at this process and here, and he clearly should have been tipped, but he wasn't, so I apologise about that. I hope you may have had some change, £2, a fiver, look down the side of your sofa, had 50p, whatever. I hope you may have backed him, but if not, hopefully this video and looking at how I look at these things and generally try and find the bet of the day helps you. So then we've got the horse and we've got doing things different. What is he doing different within all of that context? He moves up in trip. So he's up 2 furlongs. He drops in class. Tick, tick. That doesn't have to be a positive. Doesn't have to be a negative. They're just doing something different. They are the reasons why the horse suddenly may run better than it's never ran before. Distance move. Could be up, could be down. Class move. Generally with a class move, you're doing something different. You want that to be down, obviously, because generally we're looking at horses that as yet haven't shown their best. So moving down in class. We've then got handicap marks and different things, which I don't generally get too het up on, especially with unexposed horses, because we're expecting him to be something different or improve someday. If he was still 80, that isn't a reason why I'd be put off him. As it happens, he's come down £4, so that's a positive, you know. It's not a bad thing. Then we've got those things, those headgear changes, which I talked about. Tongue tie, was on the last run, so a reason for why that last run was poor. Tongue tie was on, was now off. Hood was off and is now on for a horse that has worn it quite a few times before. You've got in your back of your mind the idea that he has ran well in the odd time. I mean, it was only that last run really that he was properly smashed and beaten out of sight. And then we have the jockey switch as well. And some of you may have favourite jockeys for whatever reason. It doesn't matter who they are. I like Jamie Spencer. I didn't think about him long and hard enough in terms of the fact he was a keen horse and Hood, and knowing how Jamie likes to ride and settle the horse, etc., and all those things that I said. There was another thing there that could have ticked that box as I scoot down here for the trainer jockey test, and he ticked the box there for Windsor in terms of the course and distance there, so that was another box there. You'll have seen that photo. I'll just touch on that. If you're looking at this in the members club, you'll have seen that. If you're watching this on the free post, you'll have seen that and gone, what the hell is that? That was me and some of my very close friends. Quite a few of us there have been friends since we were kind of 5 and 6. And we were all down in Southampton for Buzz Lightyear's stag do. You'll be pleased to know that he was wearing a less, well, what should I say, a more feminine outfit on the Saturday evening. But as an aside, yeah, that's me in green. Toy Soldier from Toy Story. So that was a fun night. Anyway, that's what that picture was. Back to the horse. So, and the purpose of this video is you've got all those things coming together. And the idea of this approach, I will just mention 2 more things that has crossed my mind. You've got knowns, you've got unknowns, you've got unknown knowns and known unknowns, if that all makes sense. Going was an unknown here. He'd raced on good to soft the last day. You could take the view that that was the reason why he ran poorly, but there were enough things he was doing different, especially that tongue-tie Hood thing, for why that might not be an excuse. And importantly, with these unexposed horses, he hasn't proved that he doesn't handle the ground, and that is another very important mindset. The horse having proved they've done something is good, but everyone can see that. Everyone can see a horse has proved something, which is why I like, again, looking at these horses, because they go a bit undetected in the market, because you generally get a bigger price in the morning, because the horse hasn't got a win or a string of seconds next to their name. They as yet haven't won, and we're looking for reasons suddenly for why they might. This horse hasn't proved that he cannot handle cutting the ground, and that is important, and it's important in context of price. Because if you've got that mindset and you're backing horses at 6-4, 3-1, you cannot be wrong as often. Now, he might have hated good to soft, fine. He might have been 7-1, back to 7-2 and tailed off, fine. But looking at this mindset, looking at this type of horse, going through that whole process I've just discussed, will find you winners. And it will find you good price winners, and you can be wrong many, many times. So that's the thing there. So you've got going and ground. And that's kind of it, really. I was going to discuss something else. There were 2 things I was going to touch on, but that has just left my mind as I was thinking about something else. Hold on, I'm going to pause it because that will annoy me. Wait a second. Sorry, I've got it. And the final thing I want to say, which wraps up all of that, is this is a horse-based approach. As in, once we get to this stage, we're making a case for that particular horse. Can we make a case for Romanor? Yes, we can. To paraphrase some possibly half-decent US president, history will judge in time. But what I want to say there is you do not, and why I do what I do and the approach I take with these starting points, the systematic approach, going through all those things that I've just discussed, is you do not need to beat yourself up and get yourself in knots by judging the form chance of every runner in the race. No need to do it. That's why I'm not a form student. I can judge the horse's form. I can look at this then what box and think, oh, that was okay. And, there will be races and examples where races produce a load of winners and he ran better, blah, blah, blah. And that helps build up the picture. But I didn't before. I did back Romanor and had a little bit on him. I didn't look at any other horse in the race. Didn't need to, because I trust in that approach, because I know I've got a decent price, or what I think is a decent price, and I know he went off at 7-2. If every horse I backed at 7-1 went off at 7-2, if every horse did that, I would only win money in the long run. because of the percentage of horses that win price 7-2 and lower. Now the key is to back as many of them as possible. Every horse you back doesn't, of course, half in price. But that's a discussion, a value point for another day, and there's many people that still, especially on Twitter, don't seem to grasp that. But the point is there, you've got odds, and you do not need to beat yourself up of judging the form of the other horse. You can make a case for this horse, back him. You do not then need to be put off by twisting yourself in knots about this horse that run at Windsor and whether that was decent, whether that means we should back him and blah, blah, blah. No need. This is a trainer-based starting point. It's then an unexposed horse, focused approach. Is he or she doing something different? No need to beat yourself up in knots by looking at every other runner in the race. You may want to do so. That's not saying you're not. You may want to do so in order to build your confidence on staking amount, but I would personally strongly argue that once we've got into that point we just got into there, tick those various boxes, that you then back them, you have something on. You then may wish to look through all the other runners and make a judgment that impacts on how much you then bet on that horse and on that race, if you want to take that approach. It's trying to look for positive reasons for why we should back them. There might be, and looking for excuses for negatives, which I've touched on. Possibly poor yard form, more especially with this horse last time out because of the headgear change or whatever. And this within the context that there is more to come and that you can take a punt because of all those different things. And he ticked every box, and I will conclude on 41 minutes by looking at just tick, tick, tick. Qualified against some decent trainer stats. Yard in form, had a ratings pointer, decent price. That's the starting point. Can we make a case for the horse? I want to look at the horse through the prism and the eyes of, is he unexposed? Should there be more to come one day? And is the horse doing something different? Tongue tie off, hood on, distance move, down in class, jockey change. Down £4 in the handicap. That's kind of as an aside. Ticks all those boxes, 7-1. Let's back him. They're not going to win every time. Of course they're not. But enough will, and that has generally been my focus on bet of the day, has been with that type and going through that exact process that I've just gone through. I need to get better at the flat stuff, but the general stats there before today's losers, that is over a 20% return on investment. Okay, that's good. That's decent, and over time hopefully I can build on those profits and it will keep ticking along, and so can you. And when you start getting in that mindset of maybe using these, now test it, trial it, post in the comments. I don't mind. I'm wrong many times. You can get into that idea. Some of you may have looked at Romanor and thought that was a strong reason to back him. I should have looked at him and thought there was a stronger reason to back him. I didn't. But they're all the reasons. And they're the different things that asking that question from whatever your starting points may be, looking at horses that are lightly raced, unexposed, could be more to come, and are they doing something different, especially from their last run, especially from more recent runs? Is there a reason why they should suddenly bounce back into form and may outrun their odds? And if you take a chance on the horses at bigger prices, you can be wrong more. You do not have to be right as much, but you will win more money in the long run and get more satisfaction from solving that puzzle with bigger priced horses. And if your eyes start at the end, the top end of the market. And I know that from longer experience, and as I get more experience with each passing day. So I will leave that there. I didn't know how short this video was going to be, but that was probably the first of a focused, educational, maybe for want of a better phrase, video. So I won't apologize for the length of time. Hopefully you've got something of use out of that. I won't have covered all the things that a horse may be doing different, but just get used to asking that question in the context of your starting point, in the context of trainer form, in the context of, is the horse lightly raced and should there be more to come one day? And start asking that question of why should they improve and is the horse doing something different? Because as soon as you start asking that question regularly, it does open up a race. It opens up a plethora of different options and different views to look at a horse. and to justify recent form and to justify why then they might win at decent odds. So that's that. I think we will leave that there. There will be things I haven't touched on, such as, was the horse unlucky in its last run, which has just clocked into my head? Did they meet traffic? Did they meet trouble? That is another reason for why, they might suddenly do better from a recent run, etc. So that's that. I will leave that there because I have been going on for long enough. But yeah, hopefully you liked that video. Do post a comment if you did, if you'd like to see more things like that. Any questions, any thoughts? You can agree to disagree with me on many of those different things, including Jamie Spencer. But I'll agree to disagree on that because, yeah, they will leave that there. I do think he's a very good horseman and jockey. And if you back a Jamie Spencer ride, knowing generally how he rides, and you get pissed off when he's left it too late, there are no words because you simply shouldn't back him because you know generally how he rides. But he's also very, very good from the front as well, simply because he's a very good horseman and he has one of the best clocks in his head within the flat game. And on that bombshell, on that controversy, I will leave that there. Thanks for watching, and until the next time, this is Josh saying bye.